I want to move on to the climate modelling that you addressed in your opening statement as well, Secretary. When did Treasury commence the process of developing a climate modelling capability?
So Treasury commenced that in early 2023.
And was that a request of government that you initiate this capability?
That's right. That was I think there was a measure in the budget that actually funded Treasury to build climate modelling capability.
Okay. And what's the objective of doing so?
I think the objective of doing so was to assist the government in thinking in a connected and coherent way about what the macroeconomic implications of different pathways to net zero would be.
Thank you. How many Treasury staff work on this?
Dr Grant, do you have an estimate?
Senator, I might just ask Dr Heath to...
26.
There were 26 staff, Senator.
Thank you. If there's an official who's more familiar with the information, it'd be probably just better for them to stay at the table. Has outside experts been engaged as part of this process?
Yes, a number of experts were engaged across all of the process, but I'm going to ask Dr Heath to speak in more detail to that.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Dr Alex Heath, First Assistant Secretary, Climate Energy Trade Insights Division. So we have responsibility for the climate modelling capability that we have built in Treasury. So the question about experts and who we consulted
externally,
with, external consultants, specifically in the context of building the model, a good way to get an idea of the experts that we consulted is to look at the acknowledgements in the report. So in terms of the macroeconomic modelling, we consulted with Professor Frank Iozzo, Steve Hatfield-Dodds, Professor Warwick McKibben, and a range of other experts in more specific fields.
Were they professionally engaged, like they were paid for their advice?
In some instances, yes. In other instances, it was a case of having a conversation about specific technical issues related to the development of the modelling.
Perhaps on notice, you could just provide a list of people who were professionally engaged, some sort of contract, and any other experts that were consulted otherwise.
So, Senator, can I just clarify?
Please,
Sorry, can I just clarify? So you're looking for a list of people who were engaged under contract?
Yes.
And then you're looking for a list of everyone else who was engaged?
Who was consulted as part of building this capability.
Okay, so we consulted a lot of people across the public service. I mean, this was an exercise...
External, I've said external.
So you mean outside of the public service?
Correct, outside the public service.
Okay. Yeah.
That will also be quite an extensive list. So as you can imagine, there's a lot... Well, if you have a look at the technical appendix to the modelling report, you'll realise quite how much work went into forming views on some of the technical assumptions, and so we consulted quite widely beyond...
Okay, well, do your best about on notice what can be provided. Do you have a cost of what this capability, building this capability has been?
I do.
Yes.
So I can speak to Senator. So in the October 2022-23 budget, the government provided $29.8 million over 4 years from 22-23, and within that $6.9 million ongoing, and that was for Treasury to restore capability to model climate risks and opportunities.
Thank you. And what can this modelling do? What is in scope?
So, Senator, there are a range of models. So within the report itself, the team has built an integrated set of models to take into account a range of factors that you would think about when it comes to considering climate change opportunities or risks. At the heart of that is a structural general equilibrium model. Its name is TIM. It's a Treasury industry model. That is the macro model in which we bring everything together. But underpinning that are a number of bottoms-up models. So we have models for the electricity market. There are models for large facilities and emissions reductions. There's a household cameo model. And in this, we've also had to look at global models and global scenarios. So maybe, Senator, I don't know if you've seen it, there's a diagram in the report where we tried to summarise just the scope of the models and how many there are. and we've had to integrate them to make sure things are consistent. So while they are separate models, the team has worked incredibly hard to integrate to ensure consistency across the entire modelling framework.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair. Does the modelling capability extend to estimating the economic cost of the 2035 targets and a net zero transition?
So in the modelling, Senator, we looked at 3 scenarios. All scenarios are grounded in net zero by 2050. There's the baseline orderly scenario, there's the renewable upside scenario, and then the disorderly. So what we can tell you is the different economic costs when it comes to disorderly versus orderly. But we don't have a baseline outside. Our baseline is an orderly transition scenario.
But why haven't you attempted to quantify what the cost is? Obviously, it's not a free exercise, so it's a useful piece of information for public policy to know what the cost of the 2035 target is and what the transition is.
Can I clarify, Senator, are you talking about the economic costs?
Yes.
Yeah. So in a sense, what we have shown is that the economic cost of a disorderly transition
I appreciate
is
that
high.
there are carefully selected alternative scenarios, but what I'm just trying to understand is whether the base case itself, the economic cost, is being modelled.
I think the question, Senator, is what's your counterfactual? Relative to what?
Indeed, and 2 counterfactuals have been chosen, which
That's
I would
right.
argue are not plausible counterfactuals. There's no one advocating either of those counterfactuals.
Well, that's not the case. I wanted to make this observation. We had a decade of the counterfactual. You know, I mean, and it's very clear in the work that's been done that there's a effort in that work to try and be precise about the alternative costs of and the alternative opportunities in different approaches.
Okay, thanks, Minister.
You may have wanted to frame it differently, but the work they've undertaken has been done to advise the government about the different approaches.
Thank you. Not really germane to my question. Are there other climate models that attempt to do that?
So have other climate models used different?
No. Are there other models which have attempted to quantify the economic cost of either the 2035 targets, which I appreciate have only just been released, or more broadly of the net zero transition?
So there is other modelling looking at or comparing the economic consequences of different targets, if that is the question. The purpose of our modelling was very specifically to look at alternative pathways to achieve net zero and to understand the implications of those pathways. That was the task that we were given, and the way the scenarios that we have used were designed.
So are you saying that, thank you, this is my last question, thanks Chair. So you're saying that you're instructed by government not to cost the 2035 target or the transition?
No, what I'm saying is that we were asked to model different pathways to achieve net zero as a part of the suite of advice that was provided into the process of the net zero plans and the formulation of the target. The CCA, using CSIRO modelling as a part of that process, had the task of looking at alternative targets and providing advice on what the economic implications of those different targets might be. And in addition to formal modelling, as you would appreciate, there's a whole range of other evidence that should be brought to bear in discussions about the path to net zero. So we've just had a conversation about the value of external experts who are working in very specialised fields for understanding what technologies are available to different industries and the like. So we consulted very closely with other departments within the public service, with external experts who had information on these very, very specific questions. So the point I'm making here is that when you're trying to understand these pathways, modelling is one source of evidence that's helpful, but other forms of evidence in terms of talking to scientists and what they're seeing on the ground also forms an important part of the evidence base.
Right.
Thank you. Final wrap-up questions from the Coalition.
Chair, to assist you and officials, we've got a few more questions in this section.
Yep.
It's not just a short bracket, there's a few more
Like
questions.
10 minutes or so?
I think it'll be more than 10 minutes, yeah.
Okay, let's try.
We'll do our best endeavours, but
great.
it's more than 10 minutes.
Okay, thanks. Well, let's kick off first 10-minute block with
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Patterson.
Appreciate that. I have further questions about climate modelling if the relevant officials would like to come forward. So, as you remember, when we were previously discussing this issue, I was exploring whether Treasury had attempted to quantify the economic cost of the 2035 targets or the net zero transition. You might be aware that the Business Council of Australia has done some economic modelling of the transition, and part of the purpose of their exercise is to estimate the economic cost of the transition. They put the cost of achieving the government's 2035 targets at $500 billion. Is that consistent with Treasury's numbers?
So, Senator, I will ask Dr Heath to contribute to this, but the two modelling exercises are quite different, and I understand that those numbers from the Business Council of Australia around the investment required for the transition. So, of course, we have aggregate numbers on investment, but have taken a different approach compared to their modelling exercise. But Dr Heath may be able to give more details about that.
Yeah, so I don't have a lot to add. I think the main point to take away is that the modelling exercises are quite different. So they use very much a bottom-up. They did quite a lot of consultation with their members to understand what investments would be required specifically for specific elements of the transition, whereas we have an economy-wide model. So we do have estimates of how investment is going to evolve over time, but we don't have the ability to extract what's related to very particular elements of the net zero transition.
Yeah, I'm less interested in, I understand that point, I'm less interested in extracting those individual elements with just costing the 2035 target. I mean, the government thinks this is a good idea. Australians want to evaluate whether they agree or not. One of the things they might like to know to evaluate that is what is the cost of doing so. If a peak body like the Business Council of Australia, which is much smaller than the Department of Treasury and not as well resourced as you are, is able to do this, is it not possible for Treasury to do this, or is it just that Treasury has chosen not to undertake that exercise?
So, Senator, when we did the modelling report, so the task we were given was to model the pathways under 3 different scenarios. So we completed that task.
Yes, so really it's a decision of government. They have asked you to complete a particular task and not a different task. But if government asked you, could you please cost a 2035 target, the economic cost of the 2035 target, that's within your ability to do that, isn't it?
So I think I would refer, Dr Heath made the point earlier that when the government kind of made decisions and were thinking about all things around the net zero plan, they relied on a range of advice and a range of different modelling advice, including from the Climate Change Authority. So in a sense, what we were asked to do was a part of that, and this was our part of it. Yes, we have modelling capability that would let you ask and answer different questions. Not all of them. We had an earlier exchange around some questions we are more set up for under the modelling capability we have than other questions. But yes, if we were given different questions for the modelling, we would.
How about this specific question? If you were asked to cost the 2035 target, could you do that?
So again, Senator, in terms of the economic, let me clarify, we're talking about the economic cost.
Indeed.
But if you were interested in asking us to think about different scenarios...
Not asking about anything else, except could you, if asked, do a model on the economic cost of the 2035 target? Yes, no?
We would need the counterfactual to compare it to. That is what we are set up to do. So if you gave us imagine this versus imagine this, we would be able to tell you what the modelling results would give you under those 2 different scenarios.
And the Business Council report, which is a very useful report, goes to the kind of investments that are required principally from industry. That is a good thing, to have investment in our energy system, in the competitiveness of our manufacturing sector, in our transport capability. Mr Black said the target range that's been set is ambitious, and our analysis shows there is a pathway to achieving it that will require significant capital investment major reform and exceptional collaboration between the public and private sectors. You pointed to that. It is not the same conceptually. What is the investment that's required? It's not the same question as what is the cost, either in a broader economy-wide terms, or what is the cost to government. Those are quite different questions. But Mr Black's conclusion, or the Business Council's conclusion, is sets out, I think, in a very authoritative way, the kind of investment that Australia can expect as a result of policy certainty and target setting in this area.
Interesting framing. I don't think it's. I think their framing, in fact, was the investment that would be required to achieve those targets on those timelines.
He says that, and our analysis shows there is a pathway to achieving it that requires significant capital investment. That's private investment, right? And that's a good
Which has
thing.
To be paid for. Well,
that's a good thing. Investment in productive capability, in it, whether it's in our energy sector or manufacturing.
If it is investment in productive capability, I would agree. I'm not entirely
drives
sure
investment and productivity, future economic activity in the economy. The alternative, of course, is the sort of disinvestment and dust bowl that we had under the previous government, where you create that policy environment, disorderly policy environment, where multiple policy options are canvassed and then discarded by government. Then you do have disinvestment, which is what we saw in our generation capacity, a static sort of level, 4 gigawatts out, only 1 gigawatt in, but lost at the time when we needed to see investment in energy, in electricity, in new gas capability. What we saw was disorder and disinvestment, and that does have economy-wide impacts, and it has had economy-wide impacts. Treasury's modelling goes to comparing a series of different scenarios, and it's a useful tool for government to use.
It just can't tell the Australian people what the cost of the 2035 target will be, which is kind of an important thing to be able to tell them.
Well, what the modelling tells you that has been released is that there are alternative scenarios that have alternative costs.
Yes, fictitious alternative scenarios that no one's advocating.
Oh, it's pretty disrespectful to the Treasury team. It's just been outlined.
We just heard, hang on, sorry, Minister.
It's just been outlined.
Sorry, Minister, we just heard the evidence.
Outlined to you the effort that has gone in the agency and across government on these questions. Senator McKim asked a set of related questions that went to what's going on in the climate risk area, and what does that mean in terms of costs for the economy. I thought it was a pretty good discussion actually about the capability that's been brought to bear to make sure there is good information for government to make decisions.
It's a nice attempt at deflection, but we just heard evidence from the officials that they were asked by government to cost these scenarios. So it's no reflection on them that they've been asked to do that. It's a reflection on the government who nominated the scenarios which should be costed, which is very clear from the evidence.
I understand that you lot want to run away from action on climate. I understand that you want to run away from investment
Minister, this is just editorial.
In capability.
It does not engage my
I get the rationale behind the discussion, but
irrelevant.
You don't impugn the government's motives here. Or at least getting on with it.
I am impugning the government's motives here, and by doing so, making clear I'm not impugning the motives of the officials who are properly following the instructions they've been given by government. Chair, Senator McDonald, I just want to ask some questions about a table in the appendices of the modelling. To help you, it's on page 17. It's table C2, and it's entitled Comparisons of Estimates Incentives, 5-year averages. Are you familiar with that table? Yep. It sets out a range of numbers, which I think, in your terminology, they're called Treasury marginal abatement prices. Is that right?
Marginal abatement incentives.
Incentive, sorry. What is in simple language, what is a marginal abatement incentive?
I'll take that. Okay, so a marginal abatement incentive, in the sense that it's used here, is fundamentally a technical feature of the modelling, but I can talk through in a bit more detail if that's helpful. So if you look through the rest of the appendix, we start with global assumptions. We start with a range of assumptions about what technologies are going to be available at different points in time for abatement, and then we overlay that, which is, as Dr. Grant has mentioned, consistent with existing policies and a range of other things. And then we add an emissions constraint. And so to the extent that the other assumptions that we have in the model do not meet the emissions constraint, what the model effectively does, it looks at the abatement options that are available at each point in time and chooses the least cost forms of abatement until, and works up the stack until you get to the emissions reduction that we've applied as a constraint in the model.
Okay. So in other words, this is the incentive that would be required to meet the pathway of emissions reduction.
To get the marginal abatement that you need to meet that
Yes,
pathway.
the final dollar that matters. So this starts at $67 a tonne from 26 to 30 period and rises to $293 a tonne under the baseline scenario.
Correct.
So that is the effective carbon price which is necessary to meet that goal.
Honestly, that's the most. Honestly,
Just let the officials answer
the question, but it's the most
Minister.
juvenile question, really.
That's very...
It's a standard feature of climate modelling.
Yeah, and so let the officials answer then, Minister. Dr. Heath?
Well, Senator, I can answer. So it is a standard feature of climate modelling, and we do point out in a couple of paragraphs before the table that this does not imply the adoption of any pricing policy.
No, I'm not trying to suggest that, but we commonly measure the success or efficiency of abatement policies by the cost per tonne of abatement, right? So is that an analogous thing to the Treasury marginal abatement incentive?
So I'd make 2 points. So this is the marginal abatement
Indeed.
incentive. So if we're talking about what's
That final
the average
tonne?
cost, that will be a different number. It
Okay,
will be
do
a
you have
lower
the
number.
average costs?
We do not have that.
Okay, because you didn't model it or it's not possible to, or
I don't have that to hand.
could you take it on notice at the average costs?
It's not something that we output in our modelling, Senator. We'd
Why
have
not?
to. The focus of the modelling, really. I think that's, the marginal cost or the marginal abatement incentive is a really standard way of.
Okay, but
So
Dr.
I
Heath
think
was
the
drawing my
answer is-
attention to this as an alternative relevant measure, and now you're telling me you don't actually have it.
So I think it would be very difficult to do that in a comprehensive way. So to
Okay.
the extent that we can talk about the technologies that are taken up to meet the difference between the other settings that are assumed and that constraint, we would be able to get information on that. But there's obviously a significant amount of even lower cost abatement already baked into
Indeed.
the other elements of the assumptions
Indeed,
that we're
but
applying.
as you're indicating, the most important one is the final marginal abatement, because that is what is going to be necessary to achieve the targets that the government has nominated, right?
Well, given these scenarios, so these
Yeah.
are projections, not forecasts.
Yeah, so we're going to need to have a, in your words, marginal abatement incentive at that number per tonne in those time periods in order to achieve the government's objectives. Yes?
In this scenario.
In this scenario, yeah, which, I mean, the baseline
this
scenario
model,
is the government's policy,
In this
right?
one, yeah.
In this model.
Yeah, great, okay.
That's what models do.
So we're going to have to be paying for the marginal abatement $293 a tonne by 2046.
There's the leap just there from what is used to construct the model to this is what you have to do. That's the logical fallacy.
Well, explain it to me then, Minister. Where's the gap?
Well, the gap is that this is a model.
Yeah.
Underneath the model are a series of assumptions.
Yeah?
The assumptions are standard tools, and they
Yeah.
don't represent a decision by government or a policy from government that can be characterised the way that your team have been wandering around Senate estimates trying to characterise it.
No, but Minister, this is your model of your scenario on your assumptions. This is what will be required to achieve your targets.
Treasury's model, developed by them to inform the decisions of government in terms of what is our approach to policy in this area, makes a series of assumptions. Big
To
deal.
achieve the government's stated policy objective.
It's a standard feature of the kind of advice and the kind of expert economic work that this group does to build in a set of assumptions that go to all of the questions that have just been canvassed, but it doesn't go anywhere near meeting the threshold that you and your colleagues claim it does. And it's
if this model can be relied upon,
it really
Minister,
reflects a sort of determination to run away from action on climate.
No,
a determination
it doesn't, Minister. No, it just
to indulge the internal politics of
that's wrong,
your
Minister,
show, which
and
is
diabolical and not helpful to us getting to the next part of the program.
That's the problem. But that's what's driving
is just political rhetoric.
That's what's the assumption and the logical fallacy in your question.
If you want, Minister, this is not conducive to answering questions.
It's all about an incapacity to grapple with this set of problems.
It's really not, and it's really tiresome. I'm just trying to understand the government's modelling, right? You've put out this modelling, you've defended this modelling, you've said this modelling is of the government's preferred transition. So I'm just trying to understand, we will have to be paying $293 a tonne for the marginal tonne of abatement in order to achieve the government's transition.
Senator, one of the points that we make in the report is that as you get further out to 2050, there's greater uncertainty around abatement opportunities, but also around what value of those abatement opportunities are. We have, I think Dr. Grant and Dr. Heath mentioned the treatment of uncertainty, which is chapter 2.3. When we did this modelling, when Treasury did this modelling in 2011, 2009, in that modelling, we didn't even have EVs or batteries.
Sure.
So that's how technology can evolve over time.
But all we have is the information we have today, all we have is the model that you've done with the assumptions that you've made. And I'm asking you questions about the numbers that you have produced. I'm not inventing these numbers; they're not mine; they're yours. And they say, based on what we know now, based on the assumptions you've made, based on the government's preferred pathway, we're going to need to be spending $293 a tonne by 2050 for that marginal final tonne of abatement.
These are projections.
This is your projections, which I'm asking you about.
This is the same methodology that was used by your team.
I'm not disputing that, Minister. I'm happy to accept that. Let's take that as read.
It's never been regarded, an assumption in the modelling has never been regarded in the way that
I don't understand why you're so reluctant to confirm your own numbers. This is not some third-party group. This is not my numbers. These are your numbers.
They've just gone through the assumption. Yeah. My objection is the political claim that you make.
I'm yet to make a political claim. I may well, Minister.
See it coming
but I'm
like
yet
Christmas.
To.
You'll be more artful than your colleagues. You'll go round and around the mulberry bush for a while.
Your praise means a lot to me, but I'd be more interested in an answer to my question.
But some of the sort of lower brow attempts at this argument have made the same sloganeering approach.
I've already been re-elected for 6 years. That would be very damaging to me internally, Minister. But let's just stick to the actual questions and the actual numbers here.
Okay. Senator Patterson, have you got any more questions?
I'd like an answer to my question, then I'd be very happy to move on.
Great.
So is it true that under this model, under the assumptions that are made, under the government's preferred pathway, that we will have to be paying $293 a tonne for that final marginal tonne of abatement? Yes or no?
So the model does have a marginal cost of abatement based on how it operates to find that marginal abatement technology based on all those assumptions. That is $293 per tonne.
Thank you.
That is policy.
I'm done, Chair. Thank you.
Thank